Hello YouTube and welcome to Synthetic Oil Info. My name is Tom Brown, and in this video I want to talk about what are the things that you can do to improve your fuel mileage and get better miles per gallon. You know, there's a lot of things that we can get into, and I'll get into some of those in a little bit about things that you can do to your vehicle. But the most obvious and the easiest thing for us to do to get better fuel mileage is to slow down and to change our driving habits. You know, as you increase the speed of your vehicle as you're driving down the road, more friction, wind resistance builds up against your vehicle, and it simply takes more fuel to push it faster and faster. And so by slowing down, not only do we reduce the amount of fuel that you consume, you also increase your safety margins. So that's the very first thing I want to tell you. If you want to get better gas mileage, slow down. Also, change the way you take off from a stop. I watch people all the time gun their engines, almost like flooring it, pulling away from a stop sign, and then they're sliding into a stoplight or a stop sign, a block down the street. Well, you're consuming way more fuel than you need to be consuming by driving that way. And the last driving pattern that I notice with people is they're constantly varying their speed as they're driving down the road. And so I don't even think they realize they do it. They're slowly accelerating until they get too close up to the vehicle in front of them, and then they slow down. Almost some of the times they even have to hit the brakes. And then they repeat that pattern the whole time that they drive. Well, as you're asking your vehicle to go faster by pushing on the gas harder, you're consuming more fuel than if you would just drive at a steady pace. And that's why they usually recommend that you use cruise control when you're out on the highway, especially in non-hilly terrain. Because your cruise control can keep your vehicle at a steady speed, and you don't have to worry about that constantly varying speed, consuming more fuel. So, in the first category is change your driving habits. The second category is make sure your vehicle is in the best mechanical condition that you can get it in, as close to possible to the condition that it was in the day it was manufactured and left the factory. So the first one of those you want to make sure of is that your tires are inflated to the correct tire pressure, and that should be listed on a decal on the side of your door, on the driver's door, or look in your owner's manual. Don't go by the tire pressure inflation guidelines that are listed on the side of the tire. That is the maximum that tire can hold, and that's not necessarily the tire pressure that the car manufacturer intends for you to use in that vehicle. So always use the decal on the driver's door or in your owner's manual. The next thing you want to check is, what is the condition of the tune of your engine? Is the fuel filter, is the air filter clean? Have you done a tune-up on the vehicle in accordance with the operator's manual? Have the spark plugs ever been changed? If it has a serviceable fuel filter, has it ever been changed? Just those other basic mechanical aspects of your engine that determine how well it runs and how much fuel it consumes. Are your injectors dirty? Is your throttle body dirty? Just kind of like most of the cars now don't have carburetors anymore, so we really don't focus too much on, is your carburetor clean, but you still have a throttle body on most of these vehicles, and is it clean? So make sure that your vehicle is in good mechanical condition. And if you're not capable or not comfortable of doing these items yourself, then take it to a mechanic that you trust and make sure to have him let him know, hey, I'm concerned that I want to make sure I'm getting the best fuel mileage possible, and would you check out my vehicle and make sure that there's nothing that's out of tune or needs to be serviced that's hurting my fuel mileage. With gas between $3 and $5 a gallon, depending upon where you are in the country, fuel is one of the most expensive things that you buy. And so every time you can reduce the amount of fuel you purchase, that's a huge savings for you. So that's like in the second category, is make sure your vehicle is in as good a mechanical condition as you can possibly get it into. And the last thing that I want to talk about is some of the things that you can do to increase the fuel mileage even above uh, the way the vehicle was the day it was built. You know, there are a couple of things that you can do to improve mileage even on a brand new vehicle. You know, the vast majority of cars now come from the factory with a conventional oil in the crankcase of the engine. You know, most of the new cars now are coming with either a 0W20 or a 5W20. About the thickest that we find, or the highest viscosity that we find now, is a 5W30. You know, there's some very special high performance vehicles out there, like the Ford Mustang GT500 and the Dodge Viper, and some of those ultra high performance vehicles that are using, like a 50 weight oil, or, a racing type of oil. But setting that category aside for a second, if we're looking at gasoline engines, the vast majority of new gasoline engines coming onto the market today call for either a 020, a 5W20, or a 5W30. And so if you have one of these vehicles and you want to get just a little bit more mileage out of them and protect those vehicles better, then switch to a full synthetic oil. Especially on these vehicles that have a 0W or a 5W20 oil rating, or that's what they call for. That's a very thin oil. And when you start pushing your vehicles, when your engine is running, the water temperature on your engine, the coolant temperature is a little over 200 on a typical day, and they're not going to vary very much. You don't really have to worry about, oh, well, if I'm up north, I need to run a thinner oil, or if I'm down south, I need to run a thicker oil. The cooling systems on these new cars are so good that it really does level out that the coolant temperature. You're going to be around 200 to 210, somewhere in there, almost no matter what you're doing. So don't worry too much about that. But if you're running a 5W20, for example, and on a conventional oil, and your coolant temperature is at 210 degrees, well, then your oil temperature is probably about 40 degrees hotter than that. So it's running up there around 250. That's pushing a 5W20 conventional oil to its very limits on a normal operation. And so if you start getting into a high performance situation or a high load situation where you're stressing that engine harder than normal, you're going to push that 5W20 conventional motor oil right into where it becomes a compromised oil. And it's going to start cooking off and vaporizing and become very volatile. And that's why you're going to notice that engine will start using oil if you drive it that way. It's because literally that oil is cooking off. If you would switch to a full synthetic, like our AMSOIL Signature Series, you will notice that stops or greatly reduces, because a full synthetic like AMSOIL Signature Series oil is much less volatile than a conventional oil. It's not going to cook off. It's not going to vaporize near as easily as a conventional 5W20. And so when you get down into the 0W20s, now most of the 0W20s are at least a synthetic blend or a hydrocracked Group 3 synthetic. But if you go to a full Group 4 PAO based synthetic oil like AMSOIL Signature Series, that is the best thing you can do for those vehicles, because you're going to push that temperature range well up above 400 degrees, which your engine will never get to anyway. But you'll have a margin of safety there that you won't have to worry about, wow, is my engine going to be okay because I'm pushing it hard today? Because you've got an oil in there that can withstand that temperature and much, much more. So, and by going to a full synthetic oil as well, especially in these lighter viscosities, you're going to save a little bit on fuel economy as well, because synthetic oils reduce the amount of friction that are in your engine. They also reduce it when you use synthetic fluids in your transmissions and in your differentials and grease in your wheel bearings and things like that. Anywhere you use a full synthetic lubricant, there's a very high likelihood that you're going to reduce the amount of friction that occurs inside of that gearbox or bearing as compared to a conventional petroleum-based lubricant. And by reducing that friction, you allow it to rotate easier, and it's going to require less energy to propel your vehicle down the road or your piece of equipment through the field, or whatever we're talking about here. So that is why synthetic lubricants usually allow for you to have a small fuel savings, because you're reducing the friction inside of those components. In another video, I'll talk about how the use of synthetic lubricants can extend the life of your equipment greatly, but I'll cover that in a separate video. So that's going to be it for now. I want to thank you for stopping by. If you have any questions, you can contact us through our website right here at MinutemanPerformance.com. There should also be a little hyperlink, a red button right up here in the corner that'll take you to our website as well. You can send us an email, or you can leave a comment here on YouTube or over on Facebook at Synthetic Oil Info as well. I want to thank you again for stopping by. Please send us any comments or questions that you might have, or give us a call. Our phone number is on our website. If you have questions about how you can increase the fuel mileage or reduce your fuel consumption on your equipment, and we'll see if we can help you out. Chances are we can. So thanks again for stopping by, and you have a great day.